Let's at least try it this way, or we'll have to count pennies from paycheck to paycheck for the rest of our lives, Sergei suggested to his wife Zhenya, who only nodded and looked thoughtfully out the window. It was beginning to get dusk. It seemed to the woman that this moment of their family conversation was imbued with symbolism of their not very bright future. If they knew what their decision would lead to, they would have thought 100 times what they were signing. The couple had been married for over 2 years. They got the apartment from Sergei's parents, who left for the southern region. The man's mother had serious health problems and was sure that only a change of climate would help her improve her condition. And so, it turned out, once she was by the sea, as the former thoroughly sick woman who did not do without an inhaler and a bunch of pills dramatically rejuvenated. The sea climate really did her good, and she repeatedly called both her son and daughter-in-law with rave reviews about her well-being. I was old there, and here I am a wow go-go bragging woman. I go to the pool, and roller skating in the evenings, and run in the morning. Mom, and you are not going to us? Sergei was interested. To which the mother categorically answered that I again began to eat damn asthma? No way. You'd better come to us. Ask your father too, after all, with his knees tormented and here together with me on the alleys scattered. Sergei and Zhenya worked in the public sector. She was an accountant in the local government, and her husband was an engineer of heating networks. Money was always in short supply. The only thing that helped was that they had their own place to live. Otherwise they could hardly scrape together enough for groceries. Sergei quietly dreamed of an heir. He had already passed the 4th decade. Zhenya was 7 years younger. They decided to postpone having children for the time being, although they both planned at least 2. We would have to get on our feet first, the couple reasoned when they were asked when they would have children. However, they realized that the modest size of their salaries would not allow them to start something more. And Sergei came up with an idea. It is necessary to rent a trading point and sell food. People spend more money on food nowadays. Clothes can be renewed once every couple of years, but you want to eat every day. So we should try to sell food. They quickly found a suitable place. It was a small pavilion, located very well on a busy place and not far from their house. From the kitchen window, they could see that the store was open or closed. The couple decided not to be torn between trading and government work, and applied for redundancy. Silly girl, why are you doing this? Trading is a precarious business. Today you have money, and tomorrow you can fail, persuaded Zhenya, her colleague at work. You should have kept at least half a part-time job. If anything, you will have a place to come back to. Sergei heard the same thing from his employees when they learned that he was going to quit. However, the decision had been made, and there was nowhere to retreat to. A week after leaving, they both replaced each other at the counter, helping to keep the store clean and tidy. The products were always brought to them fresh. Sellers were polite and quick, so that the flow of customers was constantly increasing. After 6 months of work, Sergei began to think about expanding the business. Maybe we should move to another place. There will be more people. We will split up and earn more. Why? Sergei, I'm not feeling well. I should see a doctor, said his wife. She did not say that for 3 weeks she has a strange feeling of nausea. In the morning appeared a state of drowsiness. All right, you check yourself, and I'll try to find out from Igor if there are other rooms where you can work, answered Sergei. He was very worried about his wife. Zhenya was not a beauty, but very lively with a sparkling sense of humor. Her thick, brown hair was the envy of all her acquaintances. It seemed to everyone that she did not leave the beauty salons caring for her main wealth. Zhenya chuckled. Yes, I could make money advertising hair care products. Where to turn, who knows? And why haven't you turned yet? Asked acquaintances. I'm afraid suddenly I will not leave other models no chance. Laughed in response Zhenya. And they will take, and because of Zavidit, me without hair at all will leave. Sergei believed that he was lucky to meet on his way such as Zhenya. With her he was very comfortable. He came home and immediately plunged into a sense of calm and peace. And it was entirely the merit of his good-natured wife. Igor, who was the owner of the store, sometimes embarrassed Zhenya by dropping by unannounced and checking the condition of the premises. It's not that I don't trust you, but now people are terrible. He explained his behavior. They steal the air conditioner or cut the wiring, not to mention running away without paying. But you know us. We live nearby, and there's nowhere to run, Sergei answered. He was tense that the man was looking at his wife with such a heavy appraising look. which made Eugenia uncomfortable. "Sergey, this your Igor? Such an unpleasant man," she complained to her husband. "When he looks at me, immediately go cold goosebumps all over my body." "Yes, he is probably just jealous that I got such a wife," tried to joke Sergey. But Zhenya, who had recently become very suspicious, could not suppress the feeling of unaccountable anxiety. Soon an alarm sounded in the middle of the night. The fire alarm went off. However, when the couple ran to the store, it was almost completely engulfed in fire from inside and out. Zhenya looked desperately at the flames. It seemed to her that her and her husband's happy future was burned in it. The fire inspectorate made a disappointing conclusion. There had been a short circuit due to overloading in the storage room, where there were large display refrigerators and a freezer, where meat and semi-finished products were frozen. A week after the fire, Igor leisurely went up to the couple and showed them a sheet of paper with his calculations. "This is the amount of damages for my premises. I wanted to offer you to move to another place, but I didn't have time. I thought of giving it to a clothing store. But until you get to that, you need a lot of investment in repairs. I won't charge you anything for the rent, but you'll have to pay for the repairs." While the couple digested his words, other food suppliers came. During the work, Sergey and Zhenya have proved themselves as reliable partners. But now the situation has changed. "Sergey, I understand you have problems now, but you also understand me. I need to report to the base for the products. You said you'd close everything this week? Trouble doesn't come alone," Sergey thought gloomily as he sat sleepless by the kitchen window. Zhenya was a sleeper pretending to be asleep, but sleep did not come to the man. The list of debts to be repaid in the next 2 weeks was impressive. The man studied the sums with red eyes inflamed from insomnia and thought what could be done. Maybe mortgage the apartment to the bank and close the debts in one fell swoop. But Sergey realized that Zhenya would be categorically against it. But then how to be? There was no answer to this question, and Sergey continued to stare at the night gloom outside the window. The next day, Igor showed up unexpectedly and called Sergey outside. "Come on, there's a topic for conversation." Sitting on a bench in front of the burnt store, Igor inquired, "What about the money?" "Got it." "Not yet," Sergey calmly answered. He realized that this question he would be asked by everyone with whom he had dealt during the operation of the store. "I think you won't get it," Igor said softly. "Think about it. Who will give you a loan?" "No bank will contact you now." "And what do you suggest?" Sergey asked with slight irritation. "Give me your wife, Eugenia," Igor suddenly replied. "She is a woman of prominence. I've always liked them. Well, not for good. Will sleep with me for a week in my den, and all your debt will be closed." Sergey didn't remember how he grabbed Igor by the chest and shook him as hard as he could. He only smiled derisively. "You don't have the money to pay off your debt anyway, and here the solution is simple. You let me sleep with your wife, and I forgive all your debts. If you like it, I'll talk to the suppliers. You need to pay them." Sergey returned home as if in a fog. He did not say a word to his wife about his conversation with Igor. He didn't want to. Zhenya was pregnant, and the man was not going to lose his wife and unborn baby because of the antics of a lustful jerk. After thinking, Sergey sat down to call his old friends, with whom he continued to maintain relations after graduation. As soon as he said what condition Igor had set in, they all answered at once. "We'll get the money and we'll settle accounts with this scoundrel." As if on pins and needles, Sergey waited for a call from them. But instead they came to him with the whole crowd of 9 people. Each collected as much as he could, and a weighty bag of money was handed to Sergey. "Go ahead and call this asshole. Make an appointment," the men demanded. Sergey dialed Igor's number with a frantically beating heart. "It's me. Where can we meet?" Obviously, Igor expected some kind of trick and set up a meeting in a remote place, and one-on-one. The friends followed Sergey in their cars. Not much could happen. Entering the building of the abandoned factory, the man saw Igor standing in the center of the large group. A sarcastic smile, as it seemed to Sergey, did not bode well. "Why did you come here? Do you mean to say that you haven't got any money and are ready to put your wife under me?" Igor asked mockingly. "No, it's nothing like that. I came to tell you that you'll never get my wife. Here is everything you demanded and leave us alone." Sergey threw the bag of money at Igor's feet. He raised his eyebrows skeptically. "Some of us believe in ourselves too much. Open it and see what's in it." One of the men standing next to him opened the bag and pulled out thick wads of banknotes tied with colored cord. Igor took his time counting the money. Wow, that's right. Can I go now? Write me a receipt that you received everything in full and have no claims against me, Sergei demanded. In response, Igor laughed mockingly. Suddenly he grabbed the bag of bills and shoved it into the barrel where the fire was burning. Sergei watched in complete prostration as the banknotes burned in the bright flames. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? The man attacked Igor. I can't raise that much money again. That's right. You can't, Igor replied with a smug grin. That's why you'll be more cooperative and give me your wife. But because you didn't bring the money, I'll have to extend the term to 1 month. Just imagine how I will have fun with her for a month. Asshole. Sergei punched him in the face. But immediately his hands were twisted behind his back. Igor stood over him and slapped him hard. You have no idea who you're raising your hand against, he hissed angrily. Then he made a nonchalant expression again and ordered, throw that asshole out. Let him beg. Let him sell something from his organs. But I don't care. Anyway, I will not take the money until I get his wife. Sergei's friends, who broke into the building, were surrounded by Igor's men. Oh, he brought backup. So, these are the suckers who collected the money. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you all, but your efforts were wasted. The money burned up. Zhenya almost fainted from fright when she saw her husband beaten at the door. Sergei, darling, what's wrong with you? Who did this? Don't worry, it's all right, Sergei mumbled. He cringed when she touched his broken cheekbone and tried to hug him. It looked like a rib had been broken. Zhenya, you'd better leave while I deal with him, he asked his wife. That bastard's not going to let up on us until he gets you. I can't let that happen. But what can you do against such a scary man? Cried Zhenya, hugging her husband. What if we file a report? To the police, I mean. It won't help, Sergei answered glumly. He has a lot of people bought there. No one will touch him. He imagines himself a big fish, but what but? Zhenya grasped. But there are bigger fish, the kind that no Igor can handle. Go to bed, my love. You mustn't be nervous. I already know how I'll handle it. Zhenya obediently went to the bedroom, but sleep did not come. She kept wondering how her husband was going to solve the problem. What bigger fish he was talking about. Soon she heard Sergei's voice, who was talking to someone in the phone. Mark, it's me. Yes, long time no see. I need your help. Can you come to me? Who's Mark? Zhenya stood on the threshold of the room and looked at her husband carefully. He realized that there was no point in hiding who he was talking to. My younger brother, he answered quietly. Why didn't you tell me anything about him before? The wife opened her eyes wide. Because that's what we decided. Mark himself insisted that we keep our kinship low profile. Why? Because he was a big fish in the world of crime now, and even then, illegal currency transactions, smuggling, kidnapping, and a lot of things we can't talk about. That's what he was doing. I was ashamed of him, and he realized we were too different. We didn't talk much, but we kept in touch. That way at least we knew everyone was okay. Zhenya sat down on the couch in surprise. She couldn't understand why even Sergei's parents didn't mention their second son, as if he didn't even exist. Sergei said that when his father found out what Mark was doing after his service in the special forces, he almost had a stroke. I did not raise you to get into this vile swamp and become one of the criminals, yelled your father. Don't you have anything worthy to do for a living? Mark left home the same day, and his parents could not forgive him for a long time. However, with Sergei he maintained relations, and today's call for the first time was addressed to Mark as a call for help. Are you alone? Sergei greeted his brother in surprise. Mark silently looked at him and Zhenya. The woman was the first to approach and greeted him cordially. Hello, it's good to see you, Mark. My name is Zhenya. She escorted the guest inside and called him to the set table. Mark was a bit taciturn and listened more than spoke. I've told you so many times, come to my place, he said to his older brother. And what would I do? I'm just an engineer. I don't have a brain like yours. Brains can be sharpened for anything if you want to, Mark grinned. Tell me, what happened to you? Sergei told the story of Igor in detail, and Mark frowned. What an asshole. So he took the money and burned it in front of you. And he's demanding your wife too. For such things in our world are punished very severely. What are you going to do? Sergei asked anxiously. In response, Mark smiled coldly. How about this? You just tell me what you want to get from him. Yes, at least let him write a receipt that I don't owe him anything. Sergei spread his hands. And let him get away from us, forget about our existence at all. So, you don't want him to get what he deserves. Squinted at his younger brother. I don't want his blood to be on someone else's hands, Sergei said. Let him live, but without us. You're a good peacemaker as always, Mark grinned. Looking at his watch, the man got up and headed for the exit. I have to go. I'll let you know when there's news. When Zhenya arrived, she found her husband alone, finishing his dinner. Where's your brother? I have dessert ready. He flew away, but promised to come back. Her husband quoted a famous cartoon to her. What kind of dessert? Igor didn't realize how some outsider had snuck into his well-guarded apartment. The guards were lying unconscious, and he himself found himself firmly tied to a chair. What the fuck is going on here? Hey man, I don't know who you are or what you're doing here, but untie me now. Do you even know who I am? You're dead if you don't shut up, the stranger, whose face was hidden behind a mask, replied in a low voice. Igor's face covered with sweat. Who hired you? What do you want? That's what we need to talk about. Sergei couldn't believe his eyes when 3 days later Mark handed in 2 packages via courier, one containing a receipt from Igor, the other a sealed bank bag with money. A note was enclosed in the package. This is compensation for the burnt money in double the amount. You can pay back everyone you owe. I'm leaving now. If necessary, you know how to find me. Mark never put his signature on it, but it wasn't required. Zhenya, having learned that her husband had paid off all the loans and owed no one anything, was over the moon. Igor suddenly found out that he had become a nuisance to everyone. If earlier in the city he could safely count on the fact that he will help him without unnecessary questions to solve any issue, after the visit of the mysterious stranger, the attitude towards him has changed significantly. The police and tax officials visited his facilities every week, revealing one or another violation in their work. Even direct bribes did not help to get rid of the pesky attention of the controlling bodies. What's wrong with all of them? Yelled Igor at his subordinates. Why is everyone picking on me? Somebody find out what kind of man came to me. Because of him I was left without money. It's all going down the drain. But his men couldn't find out anything except one thing. He's a man who's not to be trifled with. They didn't give us his name, but they gave you a message. Igor saw a plain white envelope, from which he extracted a neatly folded note. It was printed on an ordinary printer. Disappear before it's too late. At the bottom were numbers, at the sight of which Igor clutched at his heart and fell heavily on the sofa. What a bastard. How did he know how? Chief, what is it? One of his subordinates asked timidly. None of your business, asshole, Igor shouted exasperatedly. Everybody out of here. These were the numbers of the storage lockers at the train station, where he hid important information for himself. No one he dealt with knew where his most important hiding places were. Under the guise of an ordinary small businessman, there was a blackmailer and fraudster who received huge sums of money for his silence. But now, apparently, this comes to an end. Igor left without warning, without even a word to his subordinates. He had a car stashed on the outskirts of the city for a long time, and it was time to use it. A couple weeks after Igor's escape, Sergei received a postcard with a view of the Mediterranean Sea. After studying it properly, the man burned the message together with the envelope and went to Zhenya. She had recently rounded up nicely and looked satisfied with life. At the sight of her mysteriously smiling husband, Zhenya smiled too. What do you have? Let's go on vacation to the Mediterranean Sea. We'll breathe fresh sea air. This Mark invited, Zhenya guessed, and Sergei nodded. Let's go. I've long dreamed of going abroad. Zhenya began to hug her husband. When they stopped at the hotel, which Mark had pre-booked for them, Zhenya asked, "How did you know where to go?" Sergei laughed. Mark and I since childhood loved all sorts of spy games, invented ciphers, passwords, and made secret messages to each other. He had a passion for such things, and I was not so sick of it, but I'm glad that for so many years I have not forgotten anything and understood everything correctly. Good to see you. I heard Mark's sonorous voice as he led his mother by the hand. His father followed him with a cane. Sergei jumped up at the sight of his parents. I didn't think we'd ever all get together again. Carrot, you're a genius. Mark responded by shaking his fist at his brother. Because of his passion to give me nicknames, we often fought. Sergei, look at me. If I put you at risk of not getting up at all, you will not beat the father of your nephew. Zhenya looked at the man with a smile. Mark hesitated a little, then let go of his brother, whom he managed to take in a wrap. It's always like this. When I'm about to give him a beating, someone defends him. Oh, tomboys, no way to grow up, said the mother, giving both sons a light slap on the back. Zhenya, is it true? You will soon give us a grandson, rejoiced father-in-law. The young woman blushed slightly and nodded. This vacation is just a fairy tale. God willing, there will be more of us next time, the mother-in-law remarked and raised her glass to a happy ending.